ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude all have a research mode now. You type in a question, wait a few minutes, and get back a structured report with sources. The kind of documents that's used to take an analyst a full day. And here's the problem. Those reports look equally convincing, whether they deserve your trust or not. So in this video, one use case taken seriously, deep research. A default read tools the same request question. You walk through each line to where the boat sits, what choices you make before it runs, what happens while it works, and what comes back. Then the part that matters most. How to check any research report for hallucinated claims and weak references, whichever tool wrote it. I am not going to rant with me. I am going to show you differences and give you checking method, because that is what decides whether these reports help you or quietly mislead you. Hey, I'm Mira, an interim management consultant in finance, data and strategy. Let us start with what research mode actually does. A normal chatbot answers code mostly from the model's training, where it absorbed before some cutoff dates, blending together with no trace back to the source. Useful for many things, dangerous for research. The research mode works differently. You give it a question, and the tool builds a plow, runs searches on the live web, opens the pages it finds, reads them, follows up with new searches based on what it learned, and then writes a report with the claims carry citations pointing back to those pages. That takes time, several minutes rather than seconds, and the result is long, structured sections, sometimes 10 pages or more. Two things follow from that design. First, the report is only as good as the pages that tool happened to find and trust. And the open web contains marketing, outdated advice, and content written to brag rather than to inform. Second, a citation is a claim about the source, not proof of one. The report says this page supports this sentence. Whether that is true is exactly what we will check later in this video. With that in mind, let us set up the test. The same research question goes into all three tools, word for word. Describe the current sustainability reporting requirements for mid-sized EU companies, including recent changes, with a source for every claim. The ground rules I'm working with. I'm using paid individual tier for each tool, the research mode each one offers, default settings, unless the tool asks me to make a choice, and when it does ask, it will see the choice on screen, because those choices are part of what you are comparing. One practical plot before you run anything. Research runs are metered. Each tool gives you a limited number per month on an individual plan, and the run takes minutes rather than seconds. So this is not a mode you use for every question. You spend it on questions where the answer carries weight, which is exactly why the checking part of this video matters. And the usual caveat. All three tools ship updates constantly. Where the buttons say them what the modes are actually called is a snapshot from mid-2026. The shape of the process and the checking method at the end will outlive the screenshots. First, ChatGPT. Research here starts from the Tools menu in the check window, and before anything runs, you have choices to make. Which model and which the research is allowed to use. The open web, specific sites you trust, your own uploaded files, or connected apps. That last part is worth pausing on. Restricting a research run to sources you already trust changes the reliability question before a single search happens. Once it starts, the research runs in the background. You can keep working elsewhere and come back. On screen, you can follow what it does with the time, the searches it runs, the pages it opens, and how the report builds toward a finished document with numbered citations. When the report lands, look at three things with me. How it's structured, how the citations are presented. Can you get from a play to its source in one click? And how the report handles the recent changes in the revelation, because that is where answering from old knowledge would show. Two numbers worth noting now as we go for all three tools. How long time the run took, and how many distinct sources the report cites. Neither number proves quality, but both shape how you work with the tool day to day. Second, Gemini. The first difference appears before the research starts. Gemini proposes the research plan, the sub-questions it intends to investigate, and offers to let you edit the plan before it runs. There is a genuinely different way to work it. You are steering the investigation at the start rather than reacting to a finished report at the end. Whether you prefer that is one of text questions in this comparison. When it runs, typically several minutes, you can leave and it notifies you when the report is ready. There is also a panel you can open while it works, showing what it has learned so far and what it plans to do next. A middle ground between waiting, buying, and watching everything. The finished report can be exported to Google Docs, which matters if your already lives in Google's ecosystem. This is where the tool choice question starts overlapping with the ecosystem question from my company's models and apps video. Same three things to look at when it lands: the structure, the path from claim to source, and how it handles the recent regulatory changes. Third, Claude. The difference you notice here is visibility by it works. Claude shows its process as it goes, the searches it runs, and the pages it reads live. You're effectively watching the investigation happen, which changes what you can do afterwards. If you saw it lean heavily onto or to a size, you know where to aim your checking. The report comes back structured and dense with citations. Same three questions as before. The structure, whether claim leads you to its source in one step, and what it does with the recent changes. And note the same two numbers, how long the run took and how many sources it leaned on. Seeing the process live has a practical value beyond curiosity. It calibrates your trust. A report built on 15 independent official pages and a report built on 3 commercial ones deserve different levels of scrutiny. And here you knew that before you read a single sentence. At this point, you have seen 3 reports on the same question. And if this went the way these tests usually go, all 3 look professional and all 3 read confidently. Which brings us to the part of this video I most want you to remember. Because here is the uncomfortable truth about research modes. Citations reduce the hallucination problem. They do not remove it. There are 3 specific failure modes to know about. First, the invented claim. The report states something no source says. The model filled the gap the way these models do, fluently. This is worth understanding rather than just theory. These models are built to produce plausible text, and they produce it with the same confidence whether the underlying information was found, half found, or missing. Confidence is not a signal. In a report with 40 citations, one uncycled sentence written in the same assured tone slips through unnoticed. Second, and is sneaky, citation that does not support a claim. There's a link, the link works and the page is real, but it says something adjacent to or even different from the sentence it is attached to. This one survives a quick skim because the presence of the link feels like proof. Third, the weak source addressed a strong one. The claim is supported by a content farm article, a vendor's marketing page, or a 2-year-old blog post summarizing rules that have since changed. On regulation, outdated is not slightly wrong, it is wrong. So here's the checking routine. It takes minutes, not a full day. Pick the 5 claims in the report that your decision actually depends on. For each row, click citation and ask 3 questions. Does the page say what the report says? Not roughly, but actually. What kind of page is it? The regulation itself, an official body, an established publication, or something that exists to rank in search? And when was it written? Is it describing the current rules or the old ones? If those 5 claims hold, you can extend trust to the rest with open eyes. If 2 of the 5 fail, you do not have a report. You have a first draft of a search strategy. Useful, but not something to forward to a client. And note this routine works identically on all 3 tools, and on whichever tool places them next year. Let's walk back through what we covered. Research modes search the live web and write cited reports, which makes them only good as pages they found. All 3 tools from the same basic tool, and the differences sit around it. What you can restrict and configure before draw, whether you steer the plan up front, and how much the process you can see why it works. Then the failure modes, invented claims, citations that do not support their sentence, and weak or outdated sources. And the 10-minute answer to all 3. Pick the 5 claims that matter, click them, and ask what the page says, what the page is, and when it was written. I'm not going to tell you which tool works, because the honest answer depends on your topic, your ecosystem, and your taste. And nobody can outsource taste. What I can tell you is that checking routine matters more than tool choice. A carefully checked report from any of these 3 beats and checked report on the best of them every single time. If you want to understand how these tools relate to the companies and the models behind them, watch my video on companies, models, and apps. And if your research is mostly about your own documents rather than the open web, look at my Notebook LM video. That tool answers from sources you give it, which is a different answer to the same trust problem. If this video was helpful to you, a like and a subscribe helps other people find it. See you in the next one.